everyone, and welcome back. So you find me for once actually at home in the UK in my office. I'm just back from the Algarve. I'll be off again in about 3 or 4 days. So this is just when I come home, make sure that everything still works and then get off again. But I thought I'd bring you a video on the country I've just come back from, which is Portugal. And obviously I want to talk about what really annoys the Portuguese about tourists. So let's get into it. Well, first up, and one I'm sure everyone is expecting, is contributing to the over-tourism of the area. Portugal, particularly cities like Lisbon and Porto, have seen a massive rise in tourism over the past decade. Although it's beneficial to the economy, obviously, it has also led to significant disruptions in local residential areas. Just people that actually live there. Over-tourism occurs obviously when the number of visitors basically just overwhelms the infrastructure and just kind of takes over the community, and it causes a massive strain on resources. And as you would expect from if you had similar next door to you, it causes a massive amount of frustration for locals. You know, people are just turning up, whereas for us, it may be somewhere that we want to go and enjoy and be in the moment. Oh, this is holiday. Oh, this is traveling, whatever you're doing. This is where people live. And that's something that is very much underestimated, especially with things like short-term rentals, where you have residential properties that have been converted into holiday rentals like Airbnb, and it drives up rental costs. And then it forces long-term renters out of their own neighbourhoods just because somebody wants a nice holiday in the sun. And that's just lost a sense of community in so many areas in Portugal. And obviously on top of that, because you have all these travellers and tourists, you also have an increase in noise. And then congestion as well, because, hey, let's rent a car whilst we're out here. So tourists staying in the area then just bring noise and overcrowding. It just gets worse and worse and worse. And then there's just no respect left. You have so many areas, especially if you go down to, say, the Algarve, where there's just no local life left. It's all tourism. It's all people from different countries that are coming there, enjoying what the area has to offer, but not allowing it to truly be the place it used to be that people used to enjoy. Next up, kind of coming off from this, so many people ignore the local customs and etiquette. This is really going to annoy quite a few people. Portugal has such a rich culture with specific customs, and so many tourists just overlook them. Obviously, I mean, a big one, and this seems so obvious, but there's still people that do it. That's having appropriate dress. So by that, what I mean is, if you're on the beach and you're walking around in different areas from the beach and the beach bar or whatever, yeah, being in swimwear makes sense. Being in your bikini, cool. But so many people, I've seen it myself when I have been out in Portugal, that people are in their bikinis, they're in their swimsuits, they're shirtless in the city, in the towns, just walking around, going into a restaurant with swimming shorts on. This is ridiculous. There's this weird idea from tourists as if to say, well, this entire country is our tourist spot and we're here for the beach, therefore it should be fine everywhere. So no, that's not how it works. It is for the beach. It's for that. So make sure you have some proper attire when you're actually going in there. And with that, obviously, dining etiquette is a big one because Portuguese people value their meal times. It's something you'll find a lot in this kind of area of the world and in Europe. And so there's generally a specific kind of dining customs around it. So dinner, for instance, tends to start around 7 p.m. So requesting non-traditional condiments like ketchup or anything like this for local dishes can also be a bit impolite on top of it. So, you're turning up at random times, then, hey, let's chuck some ketchup or, some brown sauce or whatever you're going to put on it. It's insulting local dishes. Also, sharing meals and respecting the time and space for long, relaxed meals. That's something that I think people should really engage with more if you're in areas like Portugal. It is a much more relaxed, much longer thing. It's not like you'd expect in the US, the UK, in various areas where it's in, out, done. It's, hey, chill out. This is a nice thing, you know? Then coming on to the next one, displaying loud or disruptive behaviour. I realise I'm saying this and I have a relatively loud voice when it comes to it, although I don't think it quite comes across as much on my videos. But obviously, it's, you know, Portugal is a welcoming place. It's known for its hospitality, as much of that part of Europe is. The culture does lean more towards quiet and polite behaviour. You've got to think about it as if you were going round to your partner's parents' house. When you did that, you wouldn't just start shouting because they've got a new mirror or they've got something that you haven't seen before. You don't just suddenly shout. That's something to feel important about. Excessive noise, like loud conversations, shouting, even playing music. Oh my God, that's one that annoys me even in the UK. Playing your phone like that is just massively disrespectful. When you're doing it in public places, it's going to be disruptive. And I mean, if you're doing this in historic areas as well, especially with the narrow streets. So for instance, if you're in somewhere like Faro, which obviously my last video was in Faro, with the old town in Faro, much, much narrower streets, that kind of sound is going to carry very easily. And then on from that, obviously, we've got drunken behaviour because, you know, public intoxication and all this kind of thing in popular tourist areas with noise and everything like that. It's part of that disruptive behaviour that I've talked about. A big one as well is for number 4, assuming Portuguese and Spanish cultures are the same. They're not. There's a whole history lesson we could do here. We won't quite get into it, but the two countries may share a border, but they are distinct cultures, distinct languages and histories. In fact, with Portuguese, there's a lot of people that will, especially linguists, that mention the fact that Portuguese has a lot more similarities with completely different areas of Europe. It is not hand in hand with, say, Spanish. So this is something to think about. And also the histories are different. It's an assumption that can be so offensive to people in that area who are just taking pride in their own country. And then kind of the obvious one is historical rivalries. I mean, Portugal's history is massively intertwined with its independence from Spain. Its people are proud of that distinction. So comments that downplay those kind of differences or compare Portugal unfavourably to Spain is going to be insulting and deeply hurtful for a lot of people. And then topping off the list, the 5th I have on my list here is people. This is always going to bug people the wrong way in general, I think, in certain areas. But it's not respecting personal space and queuing etiquette. Yes, the Brits are not the only ones that queue. Portuguese people generally value personal space. Okay, it's kind of an unspoken rule, granted, but social interactions that have that, and you have so many people that just ignore it. Now, tourists may do this, obviously, unknowingly, especially if you're from a culture that's not as specific about personal space. Maybe in your culture, you're far closer. Standing too close during a conversation or in public spaces can make locals uncomfortable. And you've got to remember, this is their home. It's not yours. You're just staying there for a little bit. So Portuguese people tend to prefer a kind of comfortable distance. And again, this is not going to be a ridiculous distance, but it's not going to be hand to hand with someone. And so it's unfair to give them those intrusions. And the queuing, obviously, queuing is respected in Portugal. Cutting in line or failing to kind of follow the order is considered very impolite. It is important. And then obviously don't overcrowd in small places, because that kind of comes from the rest of it with the personal space and everything like that. And historic cities like Porto or Lisbon have very narrow streets. Even, as I say, Faro Old Town has the same thing. So don't overcrowd. Don't just push in because you want to see it. Have some patience as to when it's going to be free. So there you go. There's just a few things that will really annoy the Portuguese about tourists. Now, it's not an extensive list. I'm sure there's plenty of things on there if you are from Portugal that you'll think, oh, he didn't mention this and that really pisses me off. But please put it in the comments. Let me know. This is just what I've come across, what I've interacted with. You may think some of them are right, some of them are wrong, some are missing. Let us know in the comments below what you think should be on there or what shouldn't have been on there. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks, everyone.